Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth video. Yep, another one, and in this one we're going to be talking about Warfronts, one of the new and really one of the most inventive looking features to be added in this expansion, personally one that I'm extremely excited about. So, Warfronts really are an entirely different type of gameplay from what we've seen before in World of Warcraft, and they're aiming to do something that we've not really seen in a very long time. They actually want to show the war between the Alliance and the Horde, and really show it in something that's close to full scale. So what we're going to see is a feature that is really a mixture between World of Warcraft and Warcraft the RTS. So allowing some RTS-like gameplay loops, but from the perspective of your actual character. What's really cool about this is that it's being added alongside the existing dungeons, raids, and island exploration, so it seems like we've went from 2 pillars of endgame content with raids and dungeons to now 4 pillars of endgame content with Warfronts, raids, dungeons, and of course the island explorations, which I covered pretty recently. And indeed, if it's hard to track all of this Battle for Azeroth stuff, there is a nice handy playlist on my channel page which will make that easy for you. So, let's get into this feature. Now, while this is Alliance versus Horde themed, it doesn't really play like a battleground. This is a PvE cooperative mode where 20 players will be working together to defeat the enemy. This mode takes many nods from the Warcraft RTS games, as we will very soon see when I dive into the details in this one. Now, Blizzard's overall goal for these is to really tell the story of the Alliance and Horde war in a way that is more visceral than just a regular cinematic, to actually allow you to play out that conflict in gameplay. So, when you first spawn in to a Warfront, the first order of business, of course, is to build up your base, just like with an RTS game. So you are going to be gathering resources and securing territory. So the resources, they are needed to construct buildings, and then the territorial control will give you construction room and unlock new buildings. Essentially, it kind of plays like the early game of an RTS. Now, players gather resources individually, that's things like lumber as an example, and the construction system works like this. Each building plot in your base will have an icon outside it. You simply just walk up to that icon, you click on it, and that will commit the resources that you've gathered on your character to the construction of that building. Then, when a building has enough resources to actually, fill up its construction bar, then a whole bunch of peons will start building up that building. And essentially, if players coordinate and start, contributing to the same building, then you'll be getting a good build order and things will be done efficiently. Now, when we look at the actual buildings, we see, it's very reminiscent of the Warcraft 3 tech tree. So, you'll build a barracks for basic troops. Great, you'll have basic troops. If you want to make those better, well, you build an armory, and then that will upgrade those troops with better gear. Then you can get special troops. As an example, if you build a spirit lodge, you'll be able to get shamans. So coming up with different build orders and strategies hopefully is going to be an element of this. I really do wish that it doesn't just turn out to be, you do it the exact same way every single time no matter what. Maybe if there was a few different build orders there for the different maps that get added to this system, then that would be great. Now, of course, this is not a completely one-sided affair, right? So the enemy will attempt to harass you in the early game, and in the later game they'll be launching counterattacks. Just like how you are going to be harassing the enemy's economy in a RTS game. That's so core to Warcraft and StarCraft. But unlike those, you're going to be literally joining your troops in the front line. I almost see it with this system as if, imagine it's Warcraft 3, but you're actually playing from the perspective of Thrall or Arthas. So it really is that bit more visceral, where you're doing all these big RTS-like loops, but you're also there on the ground helping out your troops. And then on top of all this, they have another system, commanders. So there will be various different enemy commanders who will employ different strategies, have unique troop upgrades, and also even have some unique units. Now, this means that the content is more repeatable, which again is a core theme of what we see with this expansion's new feature set. We also know that new siege engines are planned as well, as are battlefield events. What is a battlefield event? Well, basically they're things that can spawn into the battlefield, and the example that they gave was a mercenary leader coming in and presumably, they'd be offering their services in return for some resources. So with all of this, the ultimate goal of the Warfront is to overcome the enemy defenses and take out their commander. The whole idea of commanders, I think, is great. I'm almost thinking back to the Command and Conquer something commanders game. It's sort of slipped my mind, but having different commanders allows you to sort of have like different modifiers on a match to ensure that they all play differently. I think this would be especially cool if they really managed to give them AI patterns that like make them feel very different to fight, so it's more than just, oh, this guy has one unique unit. Now, let's talk about the lore of this and what's actually going on. So we don't know how many Warfronts are going to be there at launch, but we do know that the battle for Stromgarde is going to be there. And here's the setup for that. So the Undercity is in a ruin after the events of the cinematic and the immediate aftermath. That means it's no longer defensible. The Alliance essentially have the Horde all but cut off to the north of the continent. So the Alliance are fighting to reclaim Stromgarde and secure a foothold, while the Horde are fighting to maintain their power in the region. And the core idea here is that owning the Irithai Basin is very important. It blocks access to the south, and it's also a staging point on Gilneas. We aren't 100% sure how this is going to be implemented in terms of, attack-defend rule sets or things like that. And we're also not really sure what we're going to see with other Warfronts. Are they all going to be this sort of siege offense style? Are there going to be ones which, quite simply, are just an open, pitched battle? We don't really know. What I will say is this feature did look quite early on in development when they showed their concepts off. But overall, my takeaway is that the core fantasy of building an army and storming the gates with them is undeniably cool. And seeing World of Warcraft actually pull off the Warcraft bit in the more traditional sense of the old Warcraft games, well, I think that would just be a real treat. Of course, this has all been very high level in terms of the concepts that we're talking about. They haven't really sort of got down into the bare metal, really to tell us what the specifics of this system are going to be like. So we do need to wait and see. This could be better, it could be worse. It's really hard to know. We don't really know what the reward system is going to be like, how repeatable this is. Currently it's 20 players, so that's up there with raid content. So what's it going to be like in that sort of niche? Or is this going to be queuable like a battleground but cooperative? There really is quite a lot that we will need to find out about this, and it's funny looking at this expansion. We've got features such as this one, which do look quite early on in development, but then they did seem to have more of the zones be showed off and be playable in the show floor than I would have expected. So definitely it's an interesting one, and we'll have to wait and see, really, to get how close we are to beta before we can really get a good idea of when a release date might actually be. But that is it for this video. If you want to check out the rest of the Battle for Azeroth stuff, you can check out the playlist, which will just catalog all of it and be a nice little hub for you to check back on. That's it for the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm.